Third time's a charm, for sure. For sure. We hit that butt. We're good to go. Good to go. Now we're cooking with gas. Now we're badass. We're good. We're good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We got DJ Kelly in the house today. He is host of the DTD podcast, Dynamic Tales Delivered. He is a U.S. Army veteran and a police officer of 20-plus years. DJ, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I could have done the introduction by now.
Right.
I've memorized it.
Yeah. Third time's a charm, right? Remember, I said I don't edit anything.
Right, that is true. Now I'm a little concerned.
Well, so we were talking, it wasn't LinkedIn. We were trying to figure out how I came on your show how many years ago? Handful.
Like 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was an Instagram post. Maybe you had been on someone else's show, but I saw and I was like, man, that's super interesting to, do everything that you did, especially going over to the agency and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, I got to talk to this guy because I figured you, one, were kind of a rock star doing that. And then two, man, this guy's got to have some stories. And not necessarily, you and I talk about this all the time, not necessarily the combat stories, just the difference in the worldview that you take from civilian life into the Marine Corps, into the agency, and just that ever-evolving worldview. And I said, man, I got to talk to this guy.
Well, I had obviously it was a bitch in time. I felt like we were instantly connected and friends, and when you called up and said you wanted to come up, I was immediately like, fuck yes, let's do it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. And you said this was the first time where you're on the opposite end of the microphone.
Yeah. That's it's weird. And I've had a couple other people, and then when they ask, I'm just like, yeah, I'll come on, and I'll get in touch with you. My people will call your people. So I guess it's just that fear of being on the other end of the questions, because I feel like you have to be pretty vulnerable, and I guess I like being the one that's actually asking the questions and not,
Sure. Well, take everyone back to your origin story. Where did you grow up? What you did? Was it Oklahoma?
Yeah. So I grew up in this really small town in Oklahoma, and my brother had joined the Army and gone away, and I wasn't going to join the military. I was going to go to school and everything, and then I got a speeding ticket. I was really I got lots of tickets.
Heavy foot?
Yeah, in high school. And so I did. I went, and I remember I had to go in front of a judge, and they were like, you got to do community service. And I said, okay. So I got a hold of my uncle, who was in the National Guard in my hometown, and he was like an active guard guy. And he was like, well, you can come down here and clean and stuff for your community service. So I go down there, and they got me with a cheeseburger and a Coke, man. They talked to me. They were like, hey, why don't you join? So I joined actually my junior year of high school. I went to basic training between my junior and senior year, went back to my senior year. And then I was like, well, I'll be in the Guard, but I'm going to go to college and do what I said I was going to do. Went to college for a year, and I was like, I wasn't good at college then. So I was like, my brother had fun. He was on active duty. He was in Germany and stuff. So I'll go. And when I went down, I went to the MEPS and everything, and they told me, you can either pick your job or pick where you want to go. And so I was a Fort observer, and I said, I want to go to Hawaii. And they were like, done. And I was like, where's the fucking paperwork? Let's get this done and get me over to Hawaii. At 19 years old, living in Hawaii, it was a no-brainer.
So speeding ticket, community service, go to the National Guard for your community service.
They take me to lunch. The recruiter took me to lunch. He's like, have I got a deal for you? And I'm like, that's a pretty good deal. You can make money while you're in high school and blah, 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 and you can go to basic. And don't get me wrong. I went to basic between my junior and senior year, and I had a blast.
Really?
I had so much fun at basic training. I loved getting yelled at. I loved how they made fun of us and stuff. Like, it was great. I still say to this day that that's some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, the comedy's nonstop.
Yeah.
The comedy's nonstop. And I was the same way. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed boot camp.
I did. And I know that sounds weird, and I'm not trying to I don't want to make it sound like I'm beating my chest, because it was not easy at all.
Sure.
I'll be honest, I wasn't good at PT, any of that kind of stuff. I weighed 110 pounds when I joined the Army. So I wasn't good at any of it, but I really enjoyed going there. I really had a good time at basic.
Was your anybody else in the family in service? You said your older brother was.
Yeah,
correct?
my brother was in the Army. He was a medic. And then my dad was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. My grandpa was in. I had some uncles that were in.
Okay.
But not like my mom. My wife was also in. I met my wife while I was in, so she was active duty while I was too. So, and then she had people in the military from her family. So
and the reason why I asked is because probably when you showed up back home, it wasn't like kind of a real shock moment. You know what I'm saying? Or was it?
I think it was for people that I went to school with.
No
stuff.
shit.
Yeah. Because I was kind of the nerdy kid and stuff, and when I showed back up, I don't know if it really changed that much in other people's eyes. In mine, it did, because I kind of had a different focus. I still wasn't mature, and I'll say that all the way through my military career and into, I think I was when I was in law enforcement, but I think through my military career, I wasn't mature. I don't think I matured until 27, 28, really matured, and which is sad to say, because, I was married at 21, but I wasn't mature. I didn't. Yeah. I thought I knew.
Right. Well, and you look back too, right? Man, and we talked about this, we just did a couple hours,
Yeah.
It's, you run into, and this is going to sound, you're a product of your experiences, right? And so there is a stark difference between a young man that has gone through any type of basic training or regimented training through the military, and then someone who has not, right? That's not saying it's good. It's not saying it's bad. I'm just saying there is a difference, but the maturity level is still, like you said, self-admittedly, probably not all the way there.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Not probably. It wasn't there for sure.
Yeah.
I still wasn't I still wasn't good with my money. I still made dumb decisions. Still, because you're not thinking about, you and I have talked a lot about long-term and short-term. You don't ever think about long-term back then.
No, not
and
at all.
Then real consequences start happening. You're like, oh, well, that could affect that later on, and that could affect that later on, and
They, I think obviously there's that element of discipline that's there, and that's what separates, or that's what's kind of visibly, you can notice it. But at a 19 and a 20-year-old is still a 19 and a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And I look back now, and I've had some conversations, and you man, you were an FO, you were a forward observer,
right.
And I want you, for the audience's sake, to kind of take, kind of drill down on that a little bit. But that is a tremendous amount of responsibility for a young man. And please, take the audience through what the forward observer MOS entails, because it's no small fucking matter.
And it's not, but I will, self-report that I was in peacetime. I joined in 94, and I was out in 2002 with an injury. So, there's nothing that I want to say about especially talking to the guys that I've talked to on my show. There's nothing I did. Being a forward observer, you're calling for indirect fire and stuff, and I got to do field problems and all that kind of stuff and go out to the field and do those things. I never used it in real life. But thinking back to it now, those guys that did it in real life, man, it's on a whole nother level, because once again, when you're just in that environment that I was in, because I was in a peacetime military, I mean, that's all there is to it. By the time that I got out, you don't really understand the magnitude. And I think a lot of people from my era didn't understand the magnitude and didn't start to realize it until after 9/11.
That's fair. And I mean, once again, drilling all the way down, if you're handing a 19 or a 20-year-old basically this field radio,
right,
and saying, put bombs over in that direction, whether it's mortars or indirect fire, artillery, you name it,
right.
Naval guns, the whole gamut, that's
close air support, everything. Yeah,
talking to Bert, that is a tremendous amount of responsibility
on a 19-year-old.
On a 19-year-old.
Because mostly those 18, 19-year-olds are going to be following around a more senior person, but they're going to be the radio man and all that kind of stuff to start out with that guy. And I can't even fathom like what those guys did when it actually was for real, because for so long it wasn't. You went to it was a job and you lived there and you did that kind of stuff. And then when it really counted, man, I can't even imagine what those guys went through to make that switch so fast.
Did you, so in Hawaii was obviously bitching. Like you said, that was your first duty station?
Yeah, I was at the 25th. You got North Shore. I went to dive school when I was there for the military. You know, like everything was there. They had air assault school there that I went to. They had dive school. They had, like, you could do anything you wanted back then because, once again, you're talking about a peacetime army where there's tons of schools and there's tons of all this kind of stuff. And then you're a 19-year-old living in Hawaii. Like, how dumb can you be over there? Like, I think I drank way more than my share of alcohol.
Oh, dude. Yeah. So, I mean, well, yeah, Jesus. You know, I don't even think you could count them. Well, how old were you when you went to dive school? Because that was an interesting. Do you want to tell that story? Yeah.
So there was a dive school over there at Fort Island when I was stationed there, and I had worked with, as a Fort Observer, you're sliced out to an infantry unit. So I was sliced out to 227, and they had a scout platoon, and I met a couple of those guys, and I did like one mission on one field problem with them, very mid for them, but I knew those guys, and I knew one of them that went to dive school, and I was like, how'd you get to do that? And he said, it's out here, but I know some people, and I had already been a civilian scuba diver and stuff, and cool. A swimmer, and one of my additional duties before I went to dive school in the Army was I got to be in Hawaii a lifeguard for like certain sections of the year. So you go through all the, like green and red cycles, and you're doing these things. Well, at some point you get where it's like you get to clean the post, or you get to be a lifeguard, or you get to be at the pool and stuff.
Really?
So once again, I fell ass backwards into it, and they were like, you want to go be a lifeguard while we're on this cycle of, 2 or 3 months?
Wow.
And I was like, absolutely. So, I thought, I can do this and all that kind of stuff. So this guy said, hey, I can get you in. I know the people over there. All you got to do is do the test, the PT test, and go get all your medical stuff done. Just go ask your command if you can do it. So I worked for Colonel John P. Rooney. He was the battalion commander, and he was one of the greatest guys I ever knew in the military. Great commander. He was like a father to a lot of people. He really, now that I think back on it though, and I've said this to guys on the show, he was like 40, 45 at the time.
But he seemed ancient.
Yeah, he seemed like, the wise master. So I told him, hey, sir, I want to go to dive school, and I can get there. I didn't even have a car. So I'm at school. I'm telling you, I was not a smart person. I'm at Schofield Barracks, which is closer to the North Shore. The dive school is at Pearl Harbor on Fort Island. I don't have a vehicle to get there. So I tell him, sir, I want to go to this school. We don't have to pay for it. I'll get the CQ to take me to Pearl Harbor every morning. I'll bum a ride every morning just to get there. And at that time, they didn't even have bridges out to Fort Island. It was, you took a PT boat.
Wow.
So you met them right by all the ships, and they took a PT boat out to the island and dropped you off every morning and brought you back every night. I said, I'll take care of it all, sir. Don't worry. And he said, okay, I'll sign off for you to go. But if you come back and you don't complete this, it's your ass. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, you're asking
I'll take care of it. I'll do it. So I went out there and did it, and it was the most fun I ever had in the military.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hands down.
Dive school.
Dive school.
Wow.
Hands down, the most fun I ever had. And it was just like the level of what these guys knew out there and how they handled themselves in the water. And, I can just think to so many times, and it's a school, but you think to so many times where you saw like really competent people doing their job. And those guys, you know how we talked about it's a peacetime army. They had a full-time job. Those diving instructors were divers in Pearl Harbor. So they were actually doing a diving job and instructing us on, they shifted around and did that. So it was just amazing to see the whole new level of how you could work underwater.
Yeah, subject matter experts, like true subject matter experts.
True subject matter experts. And I remember we had, Master Diver Reese was the head of the school, and he had like an anchors on in between his thumbs, and he had like the old school like Navy,
Popeye.
And he was like barrel chested, and then we had a guy that was in the NFL at one time, and he got out, and he was so big that he couldn't wear his UDTs all the way buttoned. He had to like leave them half unbuckled, but. It's still to this day, I think of those people and how much they affected. There was an instructor that kind of took a liking to me, and he lived out at the North Shore, and he knew I didn't have transportation, so he would like drive me to the post every night after training and stuff. Like he would drop me off on his way home, and like you just don't see that kind of stuff. That are truly dedicated to making a person better.
Yeah, for sure. And I never went to dive school. It was one that eluded me. I got out before, like, because ours, and I'm sure yours is the same way, like, you had to have, like, those certain schools checked off by a certain rank.
Right.
In recon, you should or needed or wanted to have your gold wings by the time you were an E5 or an E6 or whatever. And, that was one of the ones, like I said, like, I just, my sniper role kind of took me away from it. And then when it came time for that, they're like, hey, dude, you got to go to dive school. And I was like, well, I only got about 6 months left in the Marine Corps, so that's going to be a tough sell. But it was definitely one where, like, being around the divers and watching them work was always super, super impressive.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a little bit, I don't know what like, fear of missing out, so to speak. I hate going into a room, and this happens a lot, where you're surrounded by people where if I'm in a room with a bunch of divers and they're talking, I don't really know what they're talking about, right? You know what I'm saying? I can follow it, but I haven't done it, right? And so that was always that itch that I kind of wanted to scratch. But guess what? You can do it in the civilian world, so I do it. Yeah.
There were people at that school, in the school with me. I was average at best. Mm-hmm. I was an average guy, average soldier, average diver. There were some amazing guys that I was in the school with that were just every single day. There was a staff sergeant, I cannot think of his name, that I was in the school with that just impressed me every day. Like his bearing, his knowledge, just how he handled himself and he handled the guys around him was just unbelievable.
And I think, and tell me, because obviously I didn't go through the school, when there's legitimate danger, when what you're doing is dangerous, the fuck around time kind of stops. Mm-hmm. As far as like the hazing and the this and the that, you know what I mean? Like stories of pre-dive were just obviously infamous, they still are in the Marine Corps. They're going to make pre-dive twice as hard as the actual school. But I want to say that, if you're jumping out of a plane or you're diving and there's some legitimate, issues, it's like we don't have time to fuck around. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to be extremely professional because, people can get hurt. Mm-hmm. People do get hurt. Yeah. Well, what rank were you when you got out, when you got your bubble?
I think I was a specialist at the time.
So when
I was an E4.
How many looks did you get walking around?
I used to tell people that it was a astronaut. They would be like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, I went to astronaut training. And they're like, what?
No shit.
I'm like, no, it's just a dive bubble. And they're like, oh, who gives a shit?
Did you ever have somebody go?
So I did have, in the Army, there's different kinds of bubbles that you can wear, like the Special Forces guys wear with the sharks on it and all that, the combat divers, yep. And I was out in the field one time, and on my uniform, I had mine, and a sergeant major came up, and he was like, that's not shit. This is the real one. Yeah. And pointed to his, and I was like, okay, Sergeant Major, you're better than me. Yeah, you're better than me.
Yeah.
And you just kind of tuck your tail and walk away. But I remember that one guy, he came up to me one time, and he's like, oh, you think you're something special. You're not shit compared to that. And I was like,
Roger that.
Moving out.
Yeah, Roger. Yeah. Did you ever, and I'm sure you did you ever want to try and go through the combatant divers course? Or once you got your cert, were you like, hey, I'm good?
I was like, I was good for that because I was coming I had about probably a year and a half, 2 years left on my contract. And I knew I was probably going to change up my MOS if I was going to stay in, because I was married and I really started liking kind of law enforcement stuff. And I had been to like I said, like air assault school, dive school. And I was like, it's cool. I got to go to all those schools, but now I want to try something that may be real world experience that you can take over into the real world when you get out. And you know, you could go MP and then go to criminal investigations and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I was focused on. So I wasn't really focused on, when I was really young, I wanted to do like everything. And then I was like, nah, you know.
So the MP process, or going, like, explain to me how that process worked. Like you obviously, was it a lap move? Obviously you had to go through the MP school.
Yeah. So I re-enlisted in Hawaii, and they said, re-enlist. And I think at that time you could, like, cause there was a lot of stuff to do. You could like stay at the duty station that you wanted, or go to the duty station you wanted. You could change your MOS, but you had to go, you know, like needs of the Army. And so I said, I want to go MP. I want to change over to that. So I changed over to that. So I was an E5 at the time. And so, you know, you're going back to a basic school. And there was a couple of guys that were there too that were, you know, 11 Bravos, and there was a couple other jobs that were there. And we were all kind of put away. They put us in different barracks than the recruits and stuff, just because we were already active duty. They didn't want us around anybody like that. You know, they didn't want us in the barracks and stuff like that. So they put us over there. And then you go through the same school that the recruit, it's no different. You just do, you know, you have to go through, and you did that. And then you get sent out to wherever you're going to go. And I got sent out to Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
Yeah. How was that?
It was interesting because it was a nice place to live. I liked living there. My wife and I would go up in the mountains every weekend and hike and stuff like that. And it was a good duty station, but it was different than Hawaii. You know, you're used to everything going on and people coming there and it being a tour. Well, Fort Huachuca, Arizona is not where everyone comes to vacation.
No shit.
But once again, I had really good leadership there. I had a captain that was military police. I'm sorry, he was enlisted, and I don't know if in the beginning of his career he had been military police, but he went and became special forces, went all the way up to E7. He was a medic in special forces, and then he got his commission, and they were like, "What do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to be a commander of an MP unit." So he came back and was the commander over our unit, and was a fantastic commander. And he went on to do bigger and better things. But I can look through all through my military career, and you can pick out people that like you'll never forget that really helped you get places that you needed to be.
Yeah, and it's I usually ask that, you know, with the guests on the show, like, we've all had mentors, good and bad, right? And like, who are your mentors? You know, and you just said it, like there's that handful that have just that seemingly lifelong impact, you know, hopefully in a positive way. Some, you know, probably there's some in a negative way as well, right? But I don't think it can be overstated how important those people are, right, in your overall development. And I was very, very fortunate. Sounds like you were too, where I always had pretty good leadership. You know what I mean? It's much easier to count the people that I didn't jive with than it is the people that I, you know, had a positive experience with.
But I think even the people that you don't jive with, you learn something from.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. You know, and the person that really made probably the biggest effect on me was a guy that kind of took me under his wing. And his name's Jason Tarrant, and he was a sergeant when I first met him, staff sergeant. My wife and I actually introduced him to his wife and stuff like. We became very good friends. But the biggest thing I remember he taught me to take away, and I still learned it as I got older, was kind of what to sweat and not to sweat. Like he knew the system, and he knew, this looks bad, but it's not bad, and
really,
and that went forward into my police career when I had another sergeant that was in charge of me that taught me, like, whoa, relax. That's not what you should be worried about. This is what you should be worried about. And that has helped me tremendously as I've gotten older.
Oh, and I was going to ask you, it's a fantastic segue. So how long were you an MP for?
Man, I only did, I think, like 2 years as an MP because I got hurt and then I got out.
Okay. So from your MP time to your police officer time, like, and we'll get to that kind of transition, like, what are some of the big similarities and what were some of the major contrasts from the military police operations to, if any, to civilian police operations, in your opinion?
You know, because when I got out of the military, I thought, man, you gotta do something. Like, you got a wife now, and my wife had already been to nursing school and had one of her degrees already. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you got to do something with your life. So I went to school. I did very well in school this time. And I have no doubt, and I will tell anybody that wants to hear it, the military is the one and only, well, not the one and only reason, but the main reason that I did good. Because I knew you don't pay attention and you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to be doing something you don't want to do later on.
That's fair.
And so I really focused on school, and I wanted to impress my wife and show her, you didn't marry a dumb guy and stuff like that. But that's what I took away from it. So when I got out of the military, I spent 3 years finishing my degree.
Okay.
So I finished my bachelor's degree in Oklahoma, and then I started going around testing at different police departments and stuff. And I was like, man, that sounds great. Let's go do that, because it was a big department. There was lots of mobility to move around. And so, that's the way it went. I moved down there, and I probably shouldn't have said the city I got caught up, but we can block that out later on. Mm-hmm. But so we moved down there.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess I should rephrase the question, like, because there's a couple questions in here, right?
Okay.
What was your most memorable MP? It was call out the right word? Like
there was a couple different ones. Being an MP is not like being a cop.
That's what I was kind of getting at. Like,
being an MP is not being a cop. I think, and I'm speaking from the law enforcement view from working in a big city. They're apples and oranges to each other. And I would say, like, when I was a patrol supervisor, right? As an E5, you're a patrol supervisor. So you have like 3 or 4 guys that are out driving around, doing traffic stops and stuff like that. And I remember the specialist that worked for me, he stopped a sergeant major. And he's kind of giving this sergeant major the business on the side of the road. And he told the sergeant major, "Don't confuse your rank with my authority."
Oh, fuck. Here we go.
And he was like, "Get your supervisor over here right now." So you get there and you're getting your ass chewed on the side of the road. And you're supposed to be a cop. Like, you're supposed to be, but you're getting your ass chewed by someone on the side of the road because your troop's not doing the right thing. And so in that sense, I would say it's nothing like being a cop. You're not going to get, well, at least I never have, where you're on the side of the road and you get called to answer for someone on the side of the road and stuff like that.
It would be tough, dude. It would be tough. Like, and obviously it's a job that needs to be done, right? And the reason why I ask is like, they're still humans. On the base and off the base, it's still humans, right? And obviously you have a little bit more of a structure and the discipline and so on and so forth. And so I've always been curious, like, how smooth of a transition from military police operations to civilian operations, what would that be like? You know what I mean? Obviously, there's the civilian riffraff and the sky's the limit. I'm sure you have endless stories, right? But it's just something that, like, when I see an MP, I'm like, when you were an MP, did you had that idea that you were going to be a police officer on the outside?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't want to say why else would you do it, but
yeah, definitely. I liked, the idea of being a military police officer, but they have so many different functions. I mean, like in combat and stuff, they have a completely different function. And, they're doing escorts and all that kind of stuff. You have your PSD teams, all of that kind of stuff that do real world stuff. Where I was, though, at Fort Huachuca is you're answering domestics and you're answering, traffic accidents and stuff. I mean, you're doing, I will say, police work as you would out in the world, but it's not the same thing. I mean, that's the best way I can say it.
Well, Well, what happened to the specialist and the sergeant major?
Oh, I don't think he worked the rest of that night or whatever, because you're just explaining like, you're just on the side of the road. Yes, sir, Major. Yes, sir, Major.
I mean,
Yes, sir,
was your
Major.
guy out of line?
Yeah, you don't. Okay, so here's the thing: you don't tell someone that. You don't tell them.
Shouldn't.
Right. Just because if you want to, this is what I feel about being a cop too. Ticket or lecture. You don't get both.
You don't get both.
You don't get both. Because why are you going to give a ticket to someone that you're going to lecture? They're not a child. They don't need to be lectured. You gave them what happened to it. They got a ticket. They go to court. They do whatever. Ticket or a lecture. And I learned that. I learned that from my dad, because he used to say that before I was ever a cop. I tell people, you're going to give me a ticket or a lecture. But I took that into police work, and I was like, it's true. Why would you do that? So was he out of line? Probably not with what he said, but with what he said.
Right.
Yeah,
and I can only imagine, the level of, when you say that to a sergeant major, you know what I mean? Like, I almost don't care what rank you are, unless you're another sergeant major. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's, luckily all my interactions with the Marine Corps MPs were fairly positive. I had a couple close calls, but they always seem to err on the side of what I want to say, common sense. I never ran into one, and I don't think I was a habitual fuck up. You know what I mean? But kill them with kindness, right? You know what I mean? Like I said, you're either going to get the ticket or you're not. I did get cuffed once. I got cuffed once in Bahrain. We were on the, I can't even remember the name of the base. It doesn't matter, but we were going to leave base and go back to where we were staying, the Marines. It was my first deployment, and just shy of the gate, just shy of quote unquote town that we had to traverse through to get to where we were actually staying. I was like, hey guys, I got to take a piss real quick. And I, shimmied in between.
Right out in public.
Well, I mean, but I was shimmied in between like these two Connex boxes. So I'm like, there's no one's going to see me, like whatever. And we weren't drinking, which is bizarre. But, I get, 2 seconds away from finishing up, and all of a sudden there's a light on me. Hey! And I'm like, here we fucking go, and it was a Navy guy. So out come the cuffs, and I immediately shut up, and he marches me into what I would call their command center, COC. And there was one other Marine in the COC. And I just stood there, silent, because I was a corporal at the time. And the Marine he wheeled around in his chair, kind of like Dr. Evil, and he kind of gave me the head nod, and I just shrugged my shoulders. And he looked at the Navy guy that had me, in custody, if you will, and he said, what's going on? What do you got him for? And he was like, oh, he was urinating in public or whatever, And the Marine, you could tell immediately, was like, what? Hey, man, just, he goes, I've been taking sailors to jail all night. He's no different. And the Marine goes, you know what? You're right. He goes, in fact, you do the paperwork. He goes, I'll take him. And so I was like, come on, bro. You know what I mean? In my head, I was like, what the fuck, And he marched me outside, and we got around got 10 feet away from the building, and he goes, turn around. And he cut the flex cuffs, and he goes, run. And I did, and I did. I ran away. I never came back. You know what I mean? Like, he let me go. But, I don't think I went back for the rest of the, not to that area, because I was afraid that, that Navy guy would see me. But other than that, I had pleasant experiences. But it always makes me wonder, you're in such a tough job as an MP because there's rank.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in their defense, it's kind of unfair.
It is. I think it is. I mean, how are you going to, with that rank thing, how are you going to, how did you handle it? Being
a sergeant, here's what I feel, being an MP, being a cop, being a detective, you have to know how to talk. It's the biggest tool that you have. The biggest. I'm more than anything. Wouldn't you rather talk a person into your car than fight them into your car?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
In everything you do, if you can make it peaceful, that's the biggest thing in the world, is to be able to talk to somebody. And so that's what you had to do. I'm not telling you that you have to eat shit, but there are ways to control a situation without the other person knowing you're controlling the situation.
And that had to be part of the curriculum, correct? Like there was this, no, it was all kind of OJT or on the job?
Well, when I went to the police academy, the out in the real world, when I went to that is a class. It's called verbal judo. And you go to it and they teach you like, hey, if this is happening, maybe try this or maybe try this or maybe try that. Or, when you're talking. But I think you learn it more than anything on the job. Sure. From the people that are teaching you. Because where I went, it was 9 months in the academy, which is a long time to be in an academy, in a school. And then when you get done with that 9 months, then you go out and you have, I think it was like 6 more months of OJT with a trainer. And then you go through another phase where you're riding with just a senior officer. You're not on training. You're not being evaluated every day, but you're with a senior officer for like 2 more months. So you're talking, a year and a half down the line. And what's great about it is you get to see how so many different kinds of people handle. And you see, well, this is good and that's bad. Sure. And this is good and that's bad. And you get to kind of do your own thing. But the biggest thing I learned from all of them was it's how you handle a situation, and not just how you talk, but you have to take control of a situation quickly, especially in the real world. And you said, like you said, it's different when there's no rank involved. Sure. You know? Without a doubt. Unless you're dealing with obviously you're going to have some people that push back. You know what I mean? Of course. I've had very, very pleasant experiences, knock on wood, with civilian police officers as well. I've just, and we were talking about this kind of off air. Like I hold law enforcement, police officers in a state, local, federal, in a very, very high regard because of the amount, and you can attest to this, like I used to do ride-alongs and stuff like that when I was younger, just because I had friends that were police officers, and I toyed around with it for a little bit, that would be a fun job. I think I would enjoy that. And I don't think I had to do too many ride-alongs before I was like, oh, like you're dealing with, nobody calls you when they're having a good day. Right. You know what I mean? Like you're right. Yeah. And I don't have to tell you that. Like you're dealing with people in their kind of worst moments, and then the level of scrutiny, right? Which and please agree or disagree, because I've not done the job. You have, like, the amount of scrutiny is probably necessary to a certain extent, right? And then it's like getting allocated on or is that the right word? Is that the term I'm using? Complained upon or right? And you were kind of telling some stories where I just when I hear those stories from law enforcement officers, I'm like, dude, how do you handle that? Like you're out here risking your life, like legitimately, right? Risking your life, right? Like I used to have that conversation with people all the time, like, oh, he's just a cop. I'm like, that motherfucker does this shit every day. Right. As soon as he steps out of his house, like how many combat deployments? Like that dude is, depending on where you're at, right? So I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like every stop, every day, it could be the day. Right. Right. And so, yeah, I just, man, I don't know how you guys handle the scrutiny. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to do the right thing. You're doing the right thing. Right. And I'm not saying the police officers don't make mistakes. Of course, they're human. Right. But how does that, that has to weigh on you, right? Yeah. What's always, you and I have talked about it at length before, about you have people, what I've really started to learn at the tail end of my career is you've got people that aren't going to like you just because you're you. Yeah. There's nothing you're going to do, say, or act to change that. There's just nothing that's going to happen. So you have to do the best that you can trying to bring them over to your side. Mm. A small win is still a win. If you can get them to think in your way one time, that's a win. Mm-hmm. And so when you have that scrutiny, do I think all that scrutiny is valid? No, absolutely not. I don't think all the scrutiny is valid, because you can scrutinize something and look for it, and then you can take the profession as a whole and just trash it. And I think that's where a lot of the scrutiny these days comes from. You just take the entire profession. You don't take an instance over here a bad apple or an instance over here. You say, well, that guy did it, so they all did it. You can't do that. Just like you can't judge a person by what someone else did, you can't do that. And I think that a lot of the scrutiny is not valid these days because of that. I really, really do. And I will stand against that as long as I can. That I don't disagree with you. There are cops that make mistakes. There are bad cops, but there's bad scientists. There's bad doctors. Sure. There's bad lawyers. There's bad everyone. And to condemn an entire group for it is absolutely wrong, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Right. It's like, yeah, I think you guys get a terrible rep with that portion of the population. I think it's short-sighted. Obviously, if you're having multiple police interactions, there's probably a fair amount of self-reflection you need to do, right?
But let's take an example of not even multiple police interactions. At every party you go to or every family gathering, you hear, well, I got stopped on traffic and they told me this and they did that. We're at a party, man. Mm-hmm. How you said you're seeing them on their worst day, even not their worst day, they're going to tell you about it just because it did something to their day.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's, like I said, and I work part-time at the police academy, and I love working there. I love being able to, have a part in that, right? Because it's such a difficult job. It's so difficult. And I look at some of these young recruits, cadets recruits, and once again, not ever having, I always say I'm law enforcement adjacent. You know what I mean? With my my time with the ATF or my time, connected to
100%.
So never claiming to have done it, obviously, right? But being surrounded by it, at different times. And I look at some of these young recruits and I'm like, man, I wonder if you realize what you're getting into. You know what I mean? Like, do you think it's one of those things where you think you know what you're getting into and you want to get into it? There's obviously a drive, right? But you don't really know what you're getting into until you really start doing it. Is that fair?
I think so. And I think that there's people that get into the job field that shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. Not that they don't even know what they're getting into, that they shouldn't be in that field.
Yeah.
I think they think that it's one thing and it's really another thing. And I guess that kind of ties in with not knowing what you're getting into. But I think, my wife and I talk about this a lot, is what I think people don't understand is that's not just a job. It's a lifestyle.
Sure.
There are multiple things that I can't do in that job that other people can do that I cannot do. So it's not just a job, because when I'm done at the end of the day, I still have rules to follow that I can't do on the other side.
Yeah, there's no off switch.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no off switch. And once again, like, that's got to be one of those things where that's probably an epiphanical moment for some people. Like, oh shit, there's no, like you said, I can't, like, you're always on the clock, whether you're on duty or not. Right? Is that fair?
Yeah. I guess more what I would say to it is just that, a lot of people say, well, I'll do this or I'll do that. And, whatever, if they go to a party and they want to drink at the party, well, I can't, because I have to be careful about my behavior in public. I have to be careful about my behavior at that party. I have to be about when I drive home, when I do all of those things, because all you're going to hear is, if I get in trouble, is it was a cop. Mm-hmm. Not the surrounding circumstances to it. The first thing you're going to hear is that was a cop.
You think that's fair?
No,
I don't think it is either.
Because you don't do that. Let's say, I've said this to people before, a doctor goes home and does it. Is that the first thing you're going to hear? Or are you going to hear what they did?
Right.
And then maybe down the road you'll hear, oh, that guy was a doctor. Why would he do that? Why would he It's not the first thing you're going to hear in my job. You're going to hear, that guy tried to tell us what to do, and look what he did.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, for sure.
And that's a weird dichotomy to me, that people want us as police officers to go, there's situations, every situation is different. We agree with that. but they want us to be human and go, man, this guy messed up, or I want to make this decision on that, or maybe he was having a bad day or whatever. But when the shoe's on the other foot, no.
Yeah, you're not afforded the same, right?
Exactly. And that's crazy to me. And as I get older and stuff, it's more and more crazy to me that you want me to do something that you won't do yourself.
That's interesting. Yeah, that would weigh heavily. I think that would weigh heavily, especially the longer that you did it. You think a lot of that kind of realization is because you're getting close to the end? I
think you just get wiser. I think that you start looking at stuff that you didn't look at before through a different lens. And when I first started, I got to tell you, the first time I went out in the streets for the first time in the projects, I was like, I thought, holy shit, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I didn't know this kind of stuff happened in the world. You hear about it, you see it on the news, but to see it in real life right in front of you, you're like, holy shit, this is so cool. And then that kind of wears down, and then you're like, okay, now it's a job. Now it's not that it's not fun to go to work, because it's fun to go to work every day, but it's a job.
Yeah.
It's a job, but it's a job you're going to take home with you too.
Yeah.
I do another podcast where I talk to a lot of undercovers, and I talk to them about, like, okay, so here's your schedule throughout the day. When you get up in the morning, you're a husband and a dad, and you get your kids off to school, and you kiss your wife, and you do all this. And then you go to work, and as you're going to work, you're a police officer because you're going into the city that you work for. And then you get to work, and you get what you're going to do for that day. And then as an undercover, you're going to turn into a bad guy. And you're going to go be a bad guy for 3 or 4 hours and do bad guy things. And then you're going to come back to the office and you're going to do the paperwork as a police officer, what that bad guy did out there. Oh, all by the way, keeping your humanity about you and keeping you being a cop while you're doing it. And then when you get done being a cop for the day and your time's over, then you're going to go home and you're going to sit down at dinner with your kids and you're going to talk about their school day and your wife about their day or your husband about their day. And they're going to say, well, what'd you do in your day? Are you going to tell them?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would or not. Probably not.
How do you tell them?
Yeah.
You tell them little things, stupid things, especially like your kids. You let them know what you do and stuff. But how do you do that every day? And then all those years that you did that for, whether you're an undercover, whether you're just patrolling, you saw the worst accident you've ever seen, or you saw a child be killed, or you saw a spouse beat another spouse. How do you go home and say that to your kids? How do you go home and talk about that at the dinner table?
Yeah, right.
And then you get to a point where they don't know what you do. And then how do they understand that? And then we get into this OODA loop in life of, well, they don't understand what you did, and they don't understand why you're gone, and you can't explain it to them until it's over or until they're older or until whatever. And you just do that throughout your entire career until the end. And then you tell them, this is what I did. These are the things I saw. You're old enough to know.
Yeah.
Did you tell your kids about stuff that you did overseas?
No. Well, I mean, obviously, my oldest at one point asked me, I can't remember if she was a junior or a senior, because for the longest time, it was the kids, they just thought I was still in the Marine Corps. And that was super easy for them, because they couldn't conceptualize, so as far as they were concerned, I was just still in the military, right? Until they got smart enough to figure it out, right? And my oldest one, my oldest daughter was like, and I wasn't ready for it. I thought I was ready for the question. But when she laid it on me, it was like, I felt like I got ambushed. As soon as she said it, I was like, fuck, here we go. What am I going to say? And I told her, I go, hey, a lot of this is going to sound really bad, but I promise you I'm not. You know what I mean? Like I promise you, like it's necessary. And the thing that really drove it home for the kids was it took them to the reunion. They got to go to headquarters. They got to see the museum. They got to see kind of like my second family, you know, and the team, right? And I can remember my oldest goes, I've never been in a room where everybody looks like Dad. You know what I mean? They're all bearded and tattooed
Right.
and la 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 la. And you know, so that was good for them. It was good for them to see, you know, get those answers that I'm sure, you know, that they didn't even have the, you know, the vocabulary to kind of articulate those questions, you know, and it kind of put that to bed. But I've often thought with the undercover stuff, super intrigued with the undercover stuff, because it would be so difficult to juggle all of those Air Fingers quote personalities. Like, at what point do you become the character that you're playing?
Right.
You know?
And how do you turn them off? And then let me give you another kind of add on to that. So when you have these, and once again, I'm going to say again, I was a very average undercover. I just did my job. You know, I don't ever want to say I was great. If someone thinks I am, cool. If they don't, cool. They're going to think both ways anyway. But I saw guys that were amazing at it. It became a different person. Like in 5 seconds, became a different person. And you were like, wow, that's you. But then those guys that are working that, this is the extra thing to add on. They go to their kids' school for an event and they look the way they look. And people are instantly like, what are they doing here? And the spouse has to put up with that, and the kids have to put up with that for so long. And then when they're finally maybe not in that job anymore, and people say, what does your dad do? He's a cop. Boom, instantly they have people that don't want to be their friend. That's horrible for a kid.
Yeah, it's super horrible.
You know? Well, they do that, so I can't be your friend.
Yeah.
Or they do this, or they do that. And they hear things from kids at school.
Sure.
Because those kids have heard it from their parents or other friends or whatever. And so I think that more than even maybe cops themselves, the families get it.
Oh, yeah, for sure, right?
I think so.
And I can attest to it a little because you're cognizant of, and I'll speak for myself, like the first time I ever walked my daughter to school, and I don't remember what grade, but she was young, and right down a couple blocks from the house that we live in, it was a very, very small Christian school. And I was home from Afghanistan, you know, big, long beard and looking like a fucking Hell's Angel or whatever. And as we come over the hill, daughter in hand, I see I'm going to call her the school marm or whatever, like one of the teachers.
Right.
And the kids are out like playing in the playground, you know? And I saw her, I'll never forget this as long as I live. She looked up, she took notice of me, and then did a quick snap, like double take, you know, like, and then kind of started like gathering children.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have, you know, like,
right.
I'm like, what do you know what I mean?
I'm about to exchange this one to you.
You know, the way she looked at me, you would have thought I came over the hill with a battle axe and my hair was on fire,
Right.
you know, like, and it, if I'm being honest, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm the nicest guy around. You know what I mean? Like, I know how I look. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can. That would be very, very difficult for a child. You know, very, very difficult. And you did it. How long did you do it for?
I was only about 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Was it just, hey, I've had enough, or?
Yeah, I was ready to move on. I'd done it. I kind of, that's how I've kind of tried to approach my entire career. Like, hey, I want to go do this. So I go do it, and I do it till I feel fulfilled in it, and then I move on to the next thing.
If you can, craziest undercover story that you have. I know it's probably hard to pick.
No, I always tell this one. I got to figure out how I'm going to tell it. So there was this guy that a couple of undercovers had tried to get into. He was not only a drug dealer, but he was a male prostitute with other males. He was running a male prostitution, like out of his house.
Wow.
He had this nice townhome, and they said, I think it was just to see. They were like, go see if you can get in with this guy. And I was like, okay. So I go over there and I make up this huge story about how my brother knows this guy, and he's hooked on meth really bad, and he's hooked on drugs, and he's stealing from my parents, and I just got to get a hold of this guy so I can get some drugs for him so he can stop stealing from. And I give this huge sob story, but I give it to this guy's, I guess the only thing I can call him is a houseboy. He has like a houseboy there that attends to everything. He, I think he's his boyfriend. I think he is, but he also cooks, cleans, gets the guy's schedule ready for him. He's just like with him all the time. But that guy's not there that I'm supposed to meet. So I give this sad story to this guy, and I give him my number, and I like cram my number in this guy's hand, and I'm like, just tell him to call me. And I'm like, and I leave, and they're like, no way that worked. So I wait a while, and it was like a day or two later, I get a text that says, hey, did you stop by my house? And I was like, yeah, who is this? And so he says his name. And I'll tell you his name that he used was Queefalata Johnson.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Okay.
So that was the name that he said he was.
Oh, that's a hell of a name.
So I said, yeah, I was over there. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to take care of my brother. I heard that you're the guy to do it. He said, I don't know. So I am texting back and forth with this guy for probably 3 hours that night. I'm at home.
Really?
I have my work phone with me, but I'm at home. And I'm texting with this male prostitute about buying some meth from him. And it gets to it where he says, all right, fine, you can come over. I'll sell it to you. Come over on this night. So we set up this whole thing, and I go there, and I'll never forget this guy goes up in front of me, and as I go to the door, this other guy is coming up, and he's very flamboyant, this guy that's going to the door. Well, I guess he knows these people. And he goes in, and they let me in, but they lead me to like an ante room in this house. And they're like, have a seat. He's with a client right now. He'll be with you in a moment, and blah, blah, blah. Can we get you anything to drink? Like, these are the nicest people in the world. Can we get you anything to drink while you're waiting? Blah, blah, blah. This other guy. And I'll never forget the guy asked for a Gatorade. And I don't know why it made me laugh so hard, but I was laughing so hard to myself that this was happening.
I'm low on electrolytes.
Yeah. He was like, I'd love a Gatorade. And I'm like, that's so weird a request. So I'm waiting around. Finally, they come and they're like, all right, we got to go upstairs. You're going to meet this guy now. So I go upstairs. They knock on the door. I go in. There's a dude without his shirt on in there. They're like talking and everything. And I was like, okay. We're doing it. We're in the dragon's mouth now. Everybody leaves. And I'll never forget, this guy had on like real short shorts and a real short shirt. And he was sitting on it. He had me sit in this like leather chair, and he was sitting on a chair above me. Like his chair was higher than mine. And he was on a computer the whole time sending out messages. Like he was talking to other people, but he's talking to me the whole time. And he's running me through this story again. Like I was in there for probably 45 minutes explaining my story again. He was checking any cracks in my story.
Yeah, he was right.
And he was like right on. And what he did was he said he sold air conditioned vouchers and prune juice. And air conditioner vouchers were methamphetamine, ice, cold, and prune juice was GHB.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what he sold. So he's walking me through this whole thing. And I'll never forget the houseboy, whatever you want to call him, brings in this bowl of fruit to him while we're in the middle of this and tells him like, hey, your 7 o'clock's here, your 7:15's here, you're like, just keeps coming in and he gives him this bowl of fruit. And I remember this guy had been scratching his crotch the whole time he was talking to me. And as he was doing it, he was eating fruit too.
Oh.
And he tells me, oh, I'm so sorry. That's so rude of me. Would you like some fruit?
I'm all set.
And I was like, I'm good. For like the next month, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, well, that was rude of me to do. So we keep going on. I finally get him to do it. And he's like, well, how does your brother use this drugs? Because now he's checking me if I know really what he's doing. So we get into that. And he's like, okay, well, I don't want him to inject these drugs. I want him to do it this way. And he's making sure all this kind of stuff. So he stands up and he says, you can make a donation now. And I said, okay, how much is the donation? He tells me $120 that I'm buying. And I remember he had this bowl of meth in his room that was so much meth in his room that he would scoop it out and put it into the bags, like to weigh it out and stuff. So he would like scoop it out. He had like a party bowl in there, and he would scoop it out, and he put it in a cigarette pack. And he said, okay, you can drop your donation off and hand it, you know, and take the cigarettes. That's your donation. So I stand up and I take it. And he goes, okay, we're going to go now. And I said, okay. And he said, now, we're going to end this. You can end it the easy way or the hard way. And I thought, this is it. This is it. This is my night. I'm going to be a different person when I leave this room. And I thought, every imaginable scenario is running through your head. Like, what is about to happen? He goes, open the door and go downstairs. I'm like, okay. So I go downstairs. And he's like, so easy or hard way? And I said, I want the easy way. And he goes, okay. And I remember he had like 4 or 5 locks on the front door, like tons of locks on the front door. I've never opened so many locks so fast in my life. He said, open that door. So I open it and I get the door open. He goes, reach in those bushes right there. There was these bushes outside of his house. So I reach in and he goes, rip out a bunch of bushes. So I rip them out and he goes, stuff them in your pocket. So I stuff them in my pocket. He goes, get the fuck out of here.
What?
So I go, all right, cool. It was the easy way. Now, come to find out that there were people, you know, listening while I was in there, my cover, and a couple of them tried to come in because they thought it was taking too long. But a couple other guys were like, nah. He's got this. Everybody sit back. Leave him in there. And I thought, you son of a bitch. But so I leave. Well, what he was doing was he was trying to get me to take those bushes. So if I got stopped, they would say, well, you got drugs on you. You just came from that house. They would say, well, those are bushes from out in front of my house. He got those drugs from out in front of my house. I don't know who that guy is.
Really? That was the thought process?
That was the thought process.
What do you think the hard way was?
Oh,
do you know?
I'm a different man talking to you right now.
Oh, my God, dude. Oh, my God, bro. Oh.
Yeah, I'm a different man.
Wow.
And I'll never forget. So we go back there. I set it up with him. He gets a little suspicious of me. He tells me, no, blah, blah, blah. And he's on like a bender. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go get the warrant signed. We're going to hit the house. We'll be done with it. I go, as I'm walking out of the judge's chambers, he hits me up on the phone and says, hey, man, it's been a crazy like 3 days. I'm sorry. Just come over. And I say, be here at this time. I'll be there. You make sure you're there because I'm going to be there. And he was like, okay, I'll set it up. You're the first one that I'm going to take care of. So we hit it. We hit the house. And I tell everybody, you got to get upstairs because that's where it's at. There's a bathroom in there. He can get rid of it really fast, blah, blah, blah. We go upstairs. They hit the door to go in, and it breaks in half. So you can see like kind of partially in. So I tell the front guy, I go, get out of the way. And I just run and I crash through the door. Well, I crashed through the door. I couldn't stop. And there was a guy that was all oiled up on the inside of the door that I crashed into. So they're trying to get him into custody, but he's sliding across the wood floors because he's got oil from head to toe.
Oh, my God.
I look over. I see my target. He's there. We go and we grab him. We kick open the bathroom door. There's another guy sitting on the toilet. And I'm not lying to you about this story. Eating chicken Kiev on the toilet with rice and everything. He's just sitting there eating.
What?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a fever dream. It feels like.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Bananas.
Yeah. So we get him out. Come to find out that guy's like a doctor from Japan that comes there just to see that guy and brings him hospital grade meth when he comes there.
Oh, wow.
So like once again, I go back to how was your day?
Yeah.
What do you tell him?
Yeah, you can't write. Oh, my God. I mean, just his name alone. You know what I mean?
Well, I got one good thing out of this. So when we went to court, he brought his mom as a material witness, that he was a good guy, all these kind of things. And I told the DA, they said they're probably going to give him probation. It's his first offense that he's been caught, blah, blah, blah. That's going to happen. I said, that's fine. Whatever happens, happens. I don't control those things. You're going to get his name into the record.
Oh, yeah, right.
I said, that name will be in the record. And so he said, I can't do that. And I said, no, you can. And so he asked me, do you see the defendant? And I said, yeah, that's him right there, so-and-so. And he said, but he doesn't go by that name. What does he go by? And I said it right into the microphone.
Were people like,
everybody's like, wait, what?
Wait,
and I was like, that's the name. So I got something away from it. Remember I told you a little win's a win.
A little win is a win for sure. Right.
So,
So and this is something I've always been interested in when, so you're undercover, you go in, well, there's a couple questions here. I'm envisioning like this punch bowl full of meth, right? Like, or you know what I'm saying? Like a fair amount, right? Well, how do you get probation when you have that much contraband or that much, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think we go back to what you and I were talking about offline. When you worked with the ATF and you see a guy and they're briefing on him and he's got this and this and this and this and this. That's the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're exactly right. I'm sure that's exactly what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if I got pinched with, a pound of meth or whatever it was, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Probation is the last thing I'm going to get,
He actually got probation in another state to go to law school.
Really?
That was his reason in court was I need to go to this state to live with my mother so I can go to finish college and law school.
How does that, this is going to kind of be a loaded question. Like, how did you feel when all he got was probation?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to carry that around forever? You can be mad about it for 5 or 10 minutes, but are you going to carry that around forever?
I guess not, right? I guess not. I can't.
I mean, if I leave and I'm mad for the next year, right? Where's he? On probation, in school, doing exactly what he wanted. Who's that hurt? Him or me?
Yeah, it's fair, dude. It's fair. Yeah, it seems like it's a lot of work and a lot of man hours. You're putting yourself.
And the guys that are still doing it every day, I 100% believe that. They are putting their lives on the line, and people don't understand, and it's why I talk about the stories I do on the show. People don't understand the toll that goes into that, the things that they're doing to put their lives on the line, to clean up their cities, to make sure they get those things off the streets. Mm-hmm. People don't understand that. And they can't fathom it until they see it. They can think they know. They can see it on the news, but they don't know.
Right. Yeah. Wow, dude. It's heavy, man. It's heavy because it's, once again, I go back to you're kind of trying to do a good thing. You're not kind of, you are. You're doing a good thing. And I don't want to say the system is unjust or whatever. Like I said, and I use that ATF example where I could not believe it. And the explanation I got was not reassuring. You know what I mean? As far as the American justice system goes. I'm sure you had to jettison that frustration very, very early on. Like you said, you're like, I'm not going to carry this with me.
You got to think about the good parts of it. I think back on the story, and it's one of my best stories of my life. I love that story.
Yeah.
I love telling that story. I love showing that it's crazy. Like, that's you got a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. Like, why be mad about it? I got to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do that. And that's great to me. It's every part of the job. I got allowed to do this job. I got to do the thing that I wanted to do forever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you carry it around. You'll think about it, and yeah, you're jaded. But it's jaded in a different way. Like, I just don't trust people and stuff because I know what people are capable of.
Right.
So that's the thing that I want to get rid of once I retire and stuff. I want to start to trust people again, but it's hard to do.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, when you're dealing with people or your circle's very, very tight, your circle has to be very, very tight because, like you said, anybody outside the circle, and it's probably, it's not probably, it's a defense mechanism. You have to, right? And like I said, having never been a police officer ever, but I don't think you have to be to realize, like, that's step number one. Don't trust anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like you
trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Sure. And a team of writers couldn't come up with that story.
Oh, and that's not even like There's other guys that you hear stuff and you're like, what?
Yeah.
You know? But I think you have to take it in that form. You have to take it as that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
That I got to be a part of that. I got to do that. I got to see this in life. Will that ever, I mean, other than on your show and stuff, will anybody ever care about that? Probably not. But that's okay.
Sure.
Because it's funny to me.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like the adrenaline, right? The adrenaline and and that's why I'm always so intrigued when I have guys on the show that have done, extensive undercover work. And I'm like, man, like the amount of adrenaline that has to be going through, your body as you're, playing this role, and I would assume an already overly skeptical, individual or audience.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, they're paranoid by nature because they know what they're doing is illegal. The ability to think that quick on your feet. Like one of the guys I had on, a good friend of mine, Tim, he told a very similar story when he was undercover, and him and his wife or girlfriend at the time, I can't remember which. So sorry, Tim. And one of the perps, if you will, or whatever, like ran into him at the grocery store. And I'm like, well, dude, like, how did you handle it? And I'll never do the story justice, but like just snapping into character or into the character that individual knew him as, man. And I was like, what, like, I get anxiety just thinking about it. Right. Like that would be, I mean, you would just have to be on guard all the time.
And like I said, I'm not even scratching the surface with my stuff. There are guys that I work with still to this day. My partner at the time that happened had been undercover for 7 years and ended up a total of like 9 years undercover.
Is he all right?
Yeah. He promoted and he does another thing. But like, I didn't want mine to go on that long. You have other people that did it longer than that. Mm-hmm. And I work with, like, I'm nothing compared to the guys I've worked with. They're phenomenal work. I mean, just masters at it when you watch them.
Mm-hmm. Very impressive. Right. It's very
it's
impressive.
Just unbelievable. You can even go away from the narcotics and go to like the human trafficking people. It's unbelievable at what they do. Mm-hmm. I can't tell those guys how good they work enough. The Vice guys, everybody that's based out of where I'm at, just unbelievable in the stuff they do day to day to day.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. It's such a, I don't want to say it's a thankless job because people like me are very thankful for
right.
it. You know what I'm saying? Just always been very, very super impressed with, because, in the military, as you well know, like, it's kind of playtime until it's not, right? And so, if there's an active conflict, okay, hey, now it's for realsies. We're going to go over. But the minute, once again, it's never been lost on me. The minute that you walk outside of your house, it's game time. Or potentially. It's potentially game time. And I know, like, that takes a toll. That would, if the combat deployments take the toll on the military individuals, then what is, being in that heightened state of awareness day in, day out for, 2 decades or more. I mean, what do you do with that? Right? Like,
and I'm going to take it a step further. I think the real guys that need the things here are the guys in uniform because they're a painted target every day. Every day. Guys like me that wear normal clothes or don't look, like that is one thing. The guys that are in a uniform and in a marked squad car every single day dealing with the public and the calls and the misery and all of those kind of things, those are the ones that deserve it the most. And there's guys that do it their whole career.
Yeah.
They don't want to leave. They don't want to be a detective. They don't want to go. They want to work in the streets. They want to work in the communities and stuff. You can't thank those guys enough.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. And I always ask the police academy cadets or students when I get in front of them for the first time, like, what made you want to be a police officer, right? And the most common answers that I get, you know what I mean, is either a family member, right? And usually it's both. A family member was a police officer in the past, and I want to serve my community, right? I want to, and you believe it when they say it. You can tell the look in their face, right? And I sometimes I just want, thank God, you know what I mean? Especially in today's climate, right? You know what I mean? And if you want to expound on that, please do. But like, who wants to be a cop in New York City right now? Like, who wants to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, where are they still pulling these, what I would consider patriots? Where are they pulling these people out of?
I think there's always going to be that person. As bad as it gets, even if it's down to 10. Yeah. 10 people, there's still going to be those ones. You did it. You chose to stay in that line.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone.
Yeah. That's a good point.
There's always going to be someone. But I would like to go back real quick to what you said when you ask them, why'd you become a cop? You know what I'd like to find interesting, and I would like to look into it, is ask them that same question when they retire.
Dude, right?
What changed? Because it's going to change. And if it doesn't, you're a liar.
Can I ask you? I mean, I know you're not done. You're close.
I think it was to see everything that I got to see. And sometimes, you want to be dumb to the world. I would like to walk around and have blinders on.
Sure.
But I think you need to see that stuff in life. Maybe not on a full-time basis, but I think everybody needs to know what's going on.
Yeah. Because
I think that maybe that's why we have a lot of problems today, is that people don't know. That we've gotten so far away from letting people know that there's bad things and there's bad people, that people don't know that anymore. No, they're not a bad person. They did this or they did that because of this or because of that. That may be true, that's why they did it. But are you going to invite them over to eat dinner at your house?
Right.
You're not. And you can make yourself feel as good as you want to feel about, well, I'm standing up for someone. You're not standing for anything. You're talking. You're not doing anything. You're just talking. Stand the line.
Yeah, you got no skin in the game, but you got an opinion.
Stand the line.
Yeah.
Stand it for 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute, and see.
Oh, that would change a lot of perspectives.
It 100% would.
Yeah, that would change a lot of perspectives.
I think that we're so quick as a society anymore to just figure out why they did it. And I guess not even why they did it. There has to be an underlying reason. They couldn't have just done it to do it. There's people that do it just to do it. There are underlying reasons. I completely agree. But I think we need to hold people accountable still.
Do you think, and this, like I said, I hope this isn't too much of a loaded question. Do you think you had to, in 2 decades, witness success stories, right? Where people truly like, hey, made a bad mistake, did the time, paid their price, what have you, and then went on to kind of go, lead a productive, did you witness success stories like that in your time?
I think you witness success stories, but in different ways. When you see that kid who is growing up in an environment where they don't like cops and still becomes a cop, because you see that.
Really?
And they tell them, well, you're against your community and stuff. And they're like, no, this is the right thing to do. This is how I fix my community. And they do that. That's a success story to me, by someone who will defy all odds and end up, saying, I'm going to stand the line.
Yeah. You often wonder, or I often wonder, there seems to be obviously a correlation between poverty and crime, right? And, like you said, you see those success stories where these individuals kind of rise above it, right? And what a monumental feat that is. There's zero reason for the person whether it's the military or law enforcement. How do you fix that? You know what I mean? How do you, and not fix that individual? They obviously made a good choice and they're trying to serve their community and better their environment. But how do you, it's an unsolvable problem, right? You know what I mean? Like even my short little stint with the ATF, I was like, this is like kicking water uphill. You're never going to get, you know what I mean? Like there's no end to this, especially when you factor in all the other, like where they're only doing a month or a year or whatever, and then they're just back out to be habitual, offenders. I called a character flaw. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can kick that water uphill.
Right.
and I didn't, obviously, I very, very thankful for my time there and all the people that I work with. They're phenomenal individuals. But I was like, man, there was just something about it, right? There was just something about it where I was like, you know what? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I think the way you have to look at it is, once again, what if you get that drug house shut down next to that old lady who can't do anything? What if you get it shut down or get that building knocked down that was there because it happened, and then she can go on her day? Just because you live in a certain area of the city or just because you live in a certain socioeconomic doesn't mean you should have to put up with bullshit all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. You should be able to live your life productively too and not put up with people giving you bullshit all day long. So those little wins where she gets to live her life, you get that house knocked down, you get that, those are wins.
Sure.
That's how you fix the problem.
Yeah, you're right.
Brick by brick. And I think that it's gotten so, I don't know how to say this, that we have such a big picture now that we forget about that little picture because we're having to worry about everything now that we forget about those little wins.
Mm-hmm. Well, that it goes, well, I'll ask the question. Knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this was a great job, and I hope it didn't affect my family too much. I know it did, especially when you and your wife are working different shifts and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think you would, 100%. Because I've had a blast. I'm still having a blast. I still love going to work every day. I still love what I do every day. I still love interviewing and all that kind of stuff at work. Yeah, absolutely, I would do it.
Yeah, and I want to get into the interview process because that's the proper term, right? Interview versus interrogation versus, right? I'm very, very interested in that, right? I think I've always been very intrigued with the ability to manipulate through conversation, right? Can you talk about some of the, the training and some of the things that you went through to become good? Because open kimono, like, when we did our podcast on DTD, I was like, that dude's he's a trained interrogator. I could tell, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I could
and
recognize.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I could recognize like the trade craft, if you will. And I instantly was like, that's fucking badass. I could, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Was it something that you were approached to do? Did you fall into it?
I kind of fell into it because I used to do it out in the field a lot where you just talk to people. You talk to people in the neighborhood. You learn everything you can, and you learn who knows everything that's going on in the neighborhood. So you talk to that person all the time, or you just talk and you become, I don't know if you would use the word friends, but you definitely become an ally.
You're building rapport.
You definitely become allies with people out in the field where they know this guy's not here to hurt things. He's really trying to do something good. I can throw him a bone every once in a while about what he's looking for and stuff. And that's the way you start doing it. And then I did it, when I moved up into a detective position, because I like that back part of it. When they're done with the case, I like to go in there and talk to the people, one, and get them to admit what they did, but I want to know the reason why. You have this, this, and this that you could be doing. Why are you not doing that? Why are you doing this? And why are we seeing you for the second and third and fourth and fifth time? Why do we continue to talk to you in the interview rooms? And I've walked in interview rooms where they're like, man, I remember you. I talked to you like 3 months ago.
Wow.
So I want to know the reason behind that. Why do we continue to do it? There's another way. There's other things that you can do. Why are we back in here talking to each other?
Wait, there had to have been some memorable answers. If you can say. I don't know if you can say or not.
It's people. I mean, you hear crazy things in there that they can't do anything else, or they don't want to do anything else, or that's just the lifestyle. I had one guy that he kept getting, when I was in patrol, he kept getting arrested for selling marijuana. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I go, why do you keep doing it? Like, you keep getting picked up like every other day.
You're not very good at this.
And he said, well, if I sell $5 worth of marijuana or I sell $5 worth of crack, what's the difference? And I said, well, one's a misdemeanor, one's a felony. And he said, that's right.
So I just flat out didn't give a fuck.
It's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
It's $5 in my pocket. But if I sell that $5 other thing, I might get, so I'm still going to make $5.
No shit.
Just how am I going to go about it?
No shit. And you had some narcotics time as well, right? You had mentioned that had to be something else, dude. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure, you know what I mean? Like if you had, like, we were having that conversation off air, if you will, about fentanyl's in everything.
Right.
Fentanyl is in everything. And I asked that stupid question. I'm like, why, from a business standpoint, if I'm producing something for my Air Fingers quote customer, why would I put something in it that could potentially kill them? And you answered immediately, and you were like, because there's going to be a new customer. And that had never dawned on me. You know what I mean? Like, call it naivety, call it, a sheltered view of the world, if you will. Like, it just didn't make sense to me because I've never worked that job. You know, and I was thinking about it from a business standpoint. Like, why would I put something in my product that could potentially harm my customer? But when you have an endless supply of customers, and you're obviously probably not a moral person to begin with, then who gives a shit, right? Is that fair?
I think so. I mean, I've been in interviews where I talked to him, and the guy was a heroin addict. And so I'm talking to him about, we're talking about the crime, and then we're talking about, like, why did you get into it in the first place, and how did this business get set up, and all that kind of stuff. And then there was, when fentanyl gets brought into it, and he literally told me, I fucked up. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I did fentanyl one time. I can't even get high on heroin anymore.
Really? Really? Obviously, I've never done it.
He said
either.
He said one time, and I was done. I can't even get high off heroin anymore.
That is so bizarre. That's bananas.
And so think about that urge so bad to get that drug in your system. Like, you'll do anything.
I can't imagine.
And so when you say, why would they sell something potentially? Because that strong pull is going to bring them back every single time. Even if they overdose, they're going to come back to you.
Yeah. I had a similar conversation with a former teammate who was the name of the team was the Atlanta Red Dogs. And I don't know if you're familiar, but it was kind of a rampart crew, and you would know more about this than me, where it sounded like they kind of gave, this group of guys, whether it was 10 of them or 15 of them, hey, go in there and cause a ruckus. You know what I'm saying? Like, stir the pot, so to speak, right? Because the story, jumping out, snatching people up, and of course I was all ears, because I was like, holy shit, that's like some no shit, stories. And he talked about this young female that he found in a neighborhood that she obviously didn't belong in, and she was trying to score smack. And I made a comment. I went, well, that's her first, fuck her. You know what I mean? Like, no decision, no smart or good story ever started off with when I started doing heroin. And man, he looked at me and he goes, well, you don't know the full story. Like, she was in a car accident. She was on pain pills. You know what I mean? The prescription ran out. She's hooked. He's like, it wasn't, she didn't just wake up one day and decide she was going to start shooting heroin. Like, there was this whole other, and it completely changed my perspective in that kind of rush to judgment. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you have endless stories of that, from your time in narcotics, where they lost their ability to make those kind of sound choices probably quite some time ago.
Yeah, and don't ever get confused. Some people make the bad decision just to make the bad decision, but sometimes there are, circumstances that bring them to that. And I think I think you have to be very careful to take that on a case-by-case basis. You have to be very careful because you thought, piece of shit, they're there to do this, right? And you can't always think that, but you can't always go, well, maybe there's a reason. You very much have to temper in the middle.
Everything's case by case.
Everything. Everything. Because you never know when it's going to go south on you.
Yeah.
Whether that be what you're doing out there or the information that you're getting, maybe it's fake information and stuff. They're just testing the waters to get you hurt.
Sure.
So I think you have to do it definitely on a case by case basis where you look into it. But then you get into the problem. Can you do that every single time? Do you have time to do that every single time to look into the back? That's what's nice, I think, about the interviews, because I do have the time on the backside to figure out, okay, here's the whole story.
Yeah, and can you take me through your process or what about the interview process? Like what put the hooks in you where you're like, hey, I'm good at this. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah. I want to say that I don't know. I would never tell people I'm good at this. I enjoy doing it. So if they think I'm good at it, good. I'm glad, but I don't want to blow my own horn about it. I want to hear people's story. I want to hear why they did this, why they set this up, why we've hit that house 3 times, why I was telling you that I just ran across a guy a month ago that his son before, and now he was being interviewed. You're seeing generational in the opposite direction.
Right.
But I really I want to know. First, I want them to admit.
Sure.
Because I think if you're going to do the job and you're going to be a gangster, then be a gangster. Admit what you did. So that's the first part. And then there's kind of something in me that I don't know if the right word is win, but I want to win in there.
Oh, sure.
I think the win is you telling me what you did.
Yeah.
Without me putting any external stuff on you. Not pressure, not screaming, not doing anything. You coming to that on your own.
Yeah, it would. Of course, it would be kind of a you versus them type of deal. Of course, that would be a win. You're cracking that person open like a safe. If you're successful,
right?
Like you said, using nothing but your wits and your mind and your ability to articulate questions. And like I said, I've always, and it's going to sound cliche, but like, you watch these true crime documentaries and there's always like, first, there's always no lawyer in the room.
Right.
And you're immediately like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you did it or not. Like, even if you didn't do it, lawyer, you know what I mean? Like, lawyer, you have to watch, like, I'm sure if you watch that stuff, even though you do
I do.
Right?
I do.
And you find yourself kind of picking apart the, I would say, like, not your teammates, but your fellow officers and, like, their methods. And
yeah, I don't know about them. I went to this really cool school. It was about psychological interviews. So you're not only interviewing, but you're learning what to watch for. You're learning, like, if a person answers a certain way, you're looking for this. You're looking for tics. You're looking for movements. You're looking for body postures and stuff like that. And we did this guy was the best, and I don't know his name, so I'm sorry, but he was the best school about interrogation that I've ever been to. And we did some major cases in it. So he did like the O.J. Simpson case.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we got the audio and we got to listen to the entire, and we had the transcript of it. Because that one wasn't videotaped. I don't know if you know that, but the O.J., it wasn't videotaped. It was audio recorded. And so you get the case and they tell you ahead of time, before you even listen to this, read the transcript, go through and mark where you think deception's being done or lies are being done and why. Then we're going to listen to it, and then we're going to go back and check the answers again. And then they tell the whole story. So they get to the end, and they tell the story about the O.J. Simpson interview where these guys that interviewed him were, like, starstruck by him. Like, they took pictures after the interview with him and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so he had brought a bag with him to the interview. And they think now that the weapon that was used and the clothes were in the bag. But after that interview, cameras caught him going down, meeting with his lawyer, that going into a trunk, and then that disappearing. It never appeared again. But they think now that maybe that was the stuff that he brought. But they got so short-sighted in the interview that happened. So those kind of things are like super interesting to me about just in general. Because what a huge case. And you think you got to blame those guys, but then you think, like, what were they thinking about? Like, what was going into that? Like, this is the biggest quote unquote interview of their career. I mean,
probably
that news was all over internationally. That's the biggest thing of their life. And they did that, you know? I don't ever want that. And especially now, you know, everything is video recorded. Every interview that I do is video recorded and stuff like that. And one, you don't want to make yourself look bad. And you don't want to make your department look bad. You know?
Sure.
And there's you very much have to learn. I go back to what we've said during this entire conversation. You have to learn how to talk to people.
And let me ask this, like, how do you separate your personal bias in that process, right? Like, we've all heard the stories or seen the stories where basically the interviewer is, they'll get people to admit to things that they didn't do because the interviewer themselves are convinced or want that, right? Is that fair? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and I won't get too much into that. I've heard a lot of that stuff where they say like it's a false confession is what they're calling a lot of it. False confession because they do this and they do, they say this and they say that. I got to think from my own personal opinion, like, why would someone confess? And there's scientific stuff about it, and they've done some research and stuff, but it still doesn't make sense to me in my brain. Why would you admit to something you didn't do? Mm-hmm. Even if that person is convinced on the other side of the table that you did it, why would you? So I haven't done enough research myself about false confessions. The way I try to avoid that is it doesn't matter what I think you did. So I'm just trying to get the story. Just tell me the story. Don't lie to me. Tell me what's going on, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, to me personally, not having so I've gone through a fair amount of, I'll call it counter interview training, right? Resistance, yeah. And so I've always wondered, once again, how you separate that. At some point, unless it's just purely professionalism, you're going to look at that individual and the tick or the scratch or the body position or all these things that the physiological responses, right? Along with what's coming out of their mouth, and keep that like, I think he did it. I know he's telling me he didn't do it, but I think he did it.
Okay, but look at it in this way. When you start the interview, they tell you their story. Just tell me your story. Mm-hmm. Tell me, start yesterday and move through till you're talking to me right now.
Okay.
Let's do 24 hours. Let's do that. Get them in a story. They were in the house. They were in the house. They were at the crime scene. They were whatever, right? You get their story. Let them tell it. Don't interrupt them. Don't ask them any questions.
Yeah, let them talk.
Just let them talk. Get their story in place. Once they get that story in place, now it doesn't matter about my bias because now I'm going to go in, well, what'd you say here? Well, what'd you say here? Well, what'd you do there? Well, how come that's changing now? Why is that? Doesn't matter if I think that they did it. They're breaking their own story apart.
Sure.
So I'm saying, well, you said this, but that doesn't make sense because if that happened, then that couldn't happen. Oh, yeah, well, what I meant was, okay, well, now that's part of the story is gone. And then if this happened, that couldn't have happened. Oh, yeah, well, okay, now that part of the story is gone. So now where are we down to? You had to be there. You had to do this. You had to do that because now everything that you said before that, you've said that's not true.
Right.
So this has to be true now. So it's a process of elimination. And it's
right?
not my bias at all. Do I know that they did it because we had detectives see them or there's evidence of it or whatever? Yeah. But I think another reason that a lot of people confess is they want to get it off their conscience. That's human nature. They just want to get it off their conscience.
Yeah, I bet. And especially if you're just grinding down, like what's the longest, if you can say, what's the longest you've ever gone as far as the interview process is concerned?
Couple hours.
Yeah. That's the longest one?
Yeah, probably, maybe 3 hours. Or a combination, like if I do a bunch of them, if there's like a group that where I'm talking to 2 or 3 different people going back where their stories aren't matching up, where they were all maybe working together, so you're going back and forth between the interviews. Well, you said this, so you go talk to that person. They said this. Well, that happened, so then you go back. So, you're talking a couple hours.
Yeah.
A while.
And that's a long time to have the air fingers cool kind of screws put to you. You know what I mean? If you're the bad guy. Or,
but I think that's... See, and I've heard people say that where you were in there too long. That's why they say it. But if I'm not applying pressure, I'm just asking questions. If I'm just getting a story, why is that too long?
Yeah.
It obviously wasn't too long to lie about what you did.
Yeah.
So why is it too long to tell the truth? As long as you're in there a reasonable amount of time and, I don't have how they used to have, on the movies where they would have the spotlight on you.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. We're just talking, man.
Sure.
I'm in here the same amount of time as you.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I didn't think of it like that. Yeah.
And not only am I talking to you, but I'm talking to the guy that you just said did it, and that guy's saying you did it, and then this guy came in and said, I don't know either one of those guys. So I'm talking to all three of you back and forth. Is it really that long of a time? Mm-hmm. Because I'm doing the same thing, and if I'm not being crazy about my interview, you're just in there for a while. It takes time to do that.
Right.
People aren't going to talk in 5 minutes. People aren't going to, well, maybe some will. And in 10 minutes, it takes time to build rapport.
Do you, and like I said, answer if you can, do you have multiple modes, so to speak? Like, obviously you're going to come in kind of soft, or cordial. You're building that rapport. Do you ever ramp it up or do you just kind of stay?
I found that I'm not saying that I haven't ever been angry in an interview or
because it's got to be frustrating
or whatever.
Right?
Frustrated, yeah, that's a good word. Frustrated, but what I found is that not every time you do that, but a lot of the times when you do that, you've lost your cause anyway because now who's in control of the interview? Mm-hmm. If you're frustrated and you're angry, you've lost control of your interview.
Yeah, interesting. It's very interesting.
So if I can stay calm, no matter what's going on, there's still that. I mean, you've been to the resistance training. Mm-hmm. Aren't you thinking, like, why is this guy so calm? Why is he not angry that we've been doing this for a while? Why is he not angry that he knows I'm lying and doing this? And that starts messing with your head too. Mm-hmm. And you're like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
Because that guy's just calm. He's just sitting there. And that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, sometimes that's more unsettling than somebody blowing their stack.
Why lose control? Because when you lose control, you're done with the interview.
Yeah, for sure.
You're done.
Well, I went through this course, and I won't go into super long details, but it was resistance training, right? And what I thought was super, super cool about the course was that it was a fair assessment of both the interview, the interrogator. I'll call him the interrogator and me as like the student. So that was the first time, like, it was almost a two-way street as far as training is concerned, right? They had the story that I was giving them, obviously, but they really didn't. They didn't know if I had any level of training, right? You know what I'm saying? You find out all this like after the fact, right? As you're going through it, but I would notice and kind of realize that, okay, we're going to be in here for about an hour. If they step out, it's going to be roughly 10 or 15 minutes. Everything's wired for sound. I get it. They're going to come in, and it's going to just gradually get hotter and hotter, right? And it was phenomenal training. And then they'll bring in somebody that's super hot, and you got to stick to your guns and use your training. And they know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very honest assessment. And then they'd bring somebody in that was soft and kind of cool the temperature in the room down a little bit and just always kind of keep you guessing. And man, I really, really enjoyed that training. And during one of the debriefs, the guy came up to me because they're out of character, right? And he's like, "Hey man, you did a great job in there, And he goes, "How many Charlie level seers have you been through?" And I went, "One." He goes, "When?" I was like 2001. He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Because the first time I walked out of your room, he goes, I went in and said, this guy's had training and he's had training recently." And so I started laughing. He goes, "So super good job on retention of the training that you went through in 2001. Because it was evident, like he goes, that you recognize, right? You recognize if you're trained in interviewing, and I'm sure you've had training in resistance, you can recognize that, right? It was so much fun. It was so much fun, dude.
Yeah. And I would love to do some training like that. I would love to see that, but that's not, that doesn't fall under my purview of me resisting being interviewed. But I love it. It's one of the best parts of my job.
Well, when we're getting beers later on, we'll talk. You know what I mean? We'll trade some stories because I would love, I would love your take on it, right? Because it's, man, how dangerous is that if somebody's kind of trained in on both sides of it?
Yeah, or think about this: you're in there interviewing, and it's your job. It's their life.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, we talk about the small wins again. How good does it feel to walk out of there when it's such huge stakes for them.
Yeah.
And they tell you.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
must have really made an impression on them for some reason, whatever that may be, a good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is. They talked to you and they told you and they admitted to it. And you can check the stuff that they said against another detective or someone that was investigating the case and then go, yep, that's true. That's true. That's true. I did see him do this. I did see him do that. Why would they tell you? It's their life they're dealing with. It's just my job.
Yeah. Interesting, bro.
Whether they confess or not at the end of the night, I'm going to be done with my shift.
Right.
They're not going to be done with this at the end of it. So that's what's so interesting. It's fascinating to me to learn. And I think you know this from the people I've interviewed and the people that we know between each. It's fascinating to me to understand why people do what they do. And I believe there's a reason behind everything. I think it's chicken shit to go, well, it's just because of the environment. No. There's a reason you did that. There's a reason that you put it in your brain and went through with whatever you were doing. And I'll give you an example of like you. You knew how dangerous it was to keep doing what you did. Yet you did it every time. When I talked to your dad and he said his little brother was about to go to Vietnam and he knew how dangerous it was because he just left after 29 months and he was willing to go back out and do it to stop him. Why? What is going on in your brain to make you do that?
Yeah, in that particular context, probably a, protection. You're trying to protect that individual. That was definitely my instant, like with Dane, I was like, for some reason, I just, and this is gonna sound bad when I say it, but like, maybe I didn't feel like he was ready. And of course he was, you know what I mean? Of course, but it's like, it's my little brother, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want him to, I want to be there to protect him. And I know that's unrealistic, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it didn't, that was the second time, maybe, it might've been the first time I ever heard Marvin say that. I didn't know that story. I didn't know that him and Jimmy, almost went to blows over it, but, and at the same time, not surprising at all, because they're very, very close,
But what goes on in my mind when I hear that, your story about Dane, because we've talked about that on Dane and you, with your dad, that story. Here's what goes through my mind when that happens. You say he wasn't ready or I was going to protect him. Okay, so what happens when you get taken out of the picture? Now he carries that you took his place. So what goes on about that? So that's what's so fascinating to me is to go, all these multiple reasons or multiple outcomes that could happen. Why did you choose the outcome you did? I got to know it. It's, believe me, it's frustrating as shit sometimes when you want to know why. My wife thinks it's funny in medicine and stuff. I always go, well, why? When did that happen? Why did that happen? She was like, you can't know why everything happened. You can't know when everything happened. But I want to know.
Yeah, I do. Right.
I don't care if you can't. Yeah. I'm going to continue to ask. I went to a doctor's checkup with her for me. And I was like, well, why would that happen? And the doctor was like, it could be a multitude of things. Okay, well, what do you think? And my wife's like, look, they don't know.
Yeah, chill out.
And I was like, but I want to know. So it's a gift and a curse for sure. But I'm so fascinated to know why. When your dad said that today, and I was like, you were going to give up your life for him. And I get everything you're saying for protector, for whatever. But then when you get taken out of the picture, your parents don't have you. He carries that around with him for the rest of his life. And all those different outcomes go into a different area now.
It's flawed logic. It really is. It's flawed because, you're everything you're saying is true. And that never would have entered, like I said, it never would have entered my brain,
right.
Until you said it out loud. And every now and again, it takes somebody else to say something where it kind of stops you dead in your tracks, right? Where the answer is right in front of your face and you don't, and I'll give you an example because this happened recently. My wife and I were watching the documentary called Maru. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's, 3 maniacs that, they climbed this mountain, right? And Vegas odds, they know that, they've tried it once, we're unsuccessful, they're going to go back, right? And I'm having a legitimate anxiety attack watching these guys, go through this process. Right. And I paused it, and I got up to use the restroom, and my wife could tell I was agitated. I was like, Jesus fucking, oh my God, like this is nuts. And she goes, what are you freaking out about? I go, I just can't fathom knowing that Vegas odds, this is going to go poorly. Like there's a good chance that you're either A, not going to make it to the top, or if you do make it to the top, you might not make it down.
Right.
And I said, and I can't understand the thought process. And she looked me dead in my eyes, like looked up from her book, and she looked me dead in my eyes, and she goes, says the guy that's been running towards the sound of gunfire for the better part of 2 decades. She goes, they're chasing a dragon just like you're chasing a dragon, and you're all idiots, like men in general, like doing, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. I went, you're right. The answer was right. I get it. I understand now when you say it like that. Now I understand it.
If I could ask you though, take it a step further, and how much flawed logic have you had in life? How much flawed logic have I had in life? Think about all the scenarios, the situations that you've been in that could have gone so much worse than they did. That's what's so fascinating to me about an interview. That is what hearing people's story, good, bad, or indifferent, I want to know. I want to know the answer. Why did you do this? Why were you there? Why would you put yourself in harm's way?
Yeah, and sometimes there's just not an answer, or at least there's not a good answer, right? Sometimes, like...
I don't know, but what makes a good answer?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I guess the answer you land on, like that's, I did it for this reason, or I did it for X reason, and you can... It's a fantastic question, because it is hard to answer. Because you can dissect anything, right? You can find flawed logic in almost anything, right? If you think hard enough, if you dissect it hard enough.
Think about the comments that we talked about. Remember when you said, we were talking about something in videos, and you said, well, I read the comments, and about half of them say to do it, and about half of them say not to. So for half of those people, that was the right answer. Half of those people, it was the wrong answer. And I think I'm guilty of it myself. We need to come to the reasoning that we're not going to make everyone happy all of the time.
That's a fantastic segue into your show, man, because you've had so many guys on, and I want to talk about that. Like, how did you get into it? Like, was your professional job, right? And you're like, I'm going to podcast, because you've had so many dudes on. You know what I mean? Like impressive guys. Like, if you thumb through, like there's no shortage of no shitters, take me through your thought process of getting into that space and your kind of journey as a podcast host, and the ups, the downs, you know what I'm saying? Like the rewards. Cause I know, cause I do it as well. Not as many as you. I find it immensely rewarding.
Yeah,
having these conversations and getting people to tell their stories.
What I did it was very simple. I was doing all these interviews at work, and I'm hearing all these people's stories that are doing bad things. And I thought, I can do this. I can talk to people. Why don't I talk to people that have done good things? Why don't I find out why they did those good things? Why these guys that joined the military literally spent their entire adult life up until they're talking to me at war. That's insane to think about. You spent your entire adult life at war. And you talk to them about it, and they're like, it's just something I did.
Yeah.
That's the answer. It was just something I did. Someone attacked the United States, so I wanted vengeance. Someone wanted to be patriotic. Someone wanted to, we heard today, someone wanted to make someone proud. So I thought
all of the above.
Right. So I thought, well, how do I do that? And how do I talk to these people? Because a lot of these guys, unless they think, I've had a lot of guys ask me, like, let me see the list of people that have been on the show. And they only say yes after they see the list.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And they're like, okay, I haven't heard anything bad about you. Plus, I know a couple of these guys. All right, I'll do it.
I don't know if I did that or not. I don't know. I'm sure I did. I'm sure I looked at who the guest list.
I'm sure. It's human nature.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just out of curiosity, like I was going to do it no matter what. I was happy. You know what I'm saying? Well, yours was the second one I ever did.
Right.
I was just happy and honored that somebody had, you know what I mean? But yeah, I probably did look.
Yeah.
You know?
And they go through and they're like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they'd say you're the real deal or whatever, but they're like, you've had some hitters. I'll come in. I'll talk.
Sure.
You know, and then it's such a crapshoot though. And I don't want to shit on other podcasts or whatever, but I think a lot of people don't take it seriously. They get someone on that they've done no research on. They know nothing about them. They have no questions ready for them. And then they're just like, well, tell me your story.
Right.
It's not an interview.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of, right. It's a lackadaisical way of going about it, or can be.
Yeah, and not only a lackadaisical, but we can go back to the interviews for criminal activity. You're just laying out a story. It could go any way. Why are you not asking why there's routes to it? So that's why I did it, because I wanted to know. I wanted to know from these guys. And it's been a very, very humbling experience to me, because I see these guys and I'm like, I haven't done anything compared to these guys. I've told you that many times. Like, these guys are superheroes. You've got guys that had a leg taken off and an amputee and go back and lead troops in battle. Who does that?
Yeah, pretty legit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had Donnie Brasco on.
Mm-hmm.
You take down the 5 mob families? Why?
Yeah, unreal. Unreal, dude. Unreal.
You got the cocaine cowboys. You got Frozen Timber. I've had the guy that hunted the Night Stalker on the show.
Mm-hmm. And what a privilege, right? Like, what a privilege to be able to talk to those people.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And get their perspective on it. You can get the news's perspective, or you can get your neighbor's perspective. Let's talk to the person that was there.
Right.
Let's talk to the guy that was actually in Black Hawk Down. Let's talk to the guy that was actually on those raids for Saddam, bin Laden. Let's talk to them, and let's cut away all the bullshit, and let's talk about you and what you did in that mission.
Mm-hmm. And you have a very positive, and like I said, we talked about this kind of off air. To me, it's imperative that I think that we hold these interviews, and there's going to be a lot of inherent negativity, because some of these things were, it's heavy material, right? It's heavy material, right? And so to kind of extract or focus on the positive aspects of, okay, like, hey, that was the worst deployment of your life or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, what positives came out of that, right? I feel responsible to do that, in this space. You know what I'm saying? Like, being salacious and getting people to, kind of, like, I just want it to be positive. I want to shine the individuals that are on the show, the positive aspects of them, right? And then education, like, you're educating me right now. You've been educating me since you got here, right? Whether it's...
Well, I'm honored that you say that.
100%. Like, I'm not just saying it because we're on air. Like, what did we do all morning?
Right.
Like, you educated me all morning long on things that I had no clue about, right? And I'm grateful for that, right? Like, one of the things that one of the guys I used to work with, who I looked up, still looked up to, a very accomplished case officer, very, very, the dude's legit, right? And I would just wear him out, like, hey, teach me, you know what I'm saying? Like, let me see I want to put your glasses on and see, and he goes, Hoot, everybody's worth a cup of coffee. You just never know. Just everyone's worth a cup of coffee. Talk to people. You just never know what you're going to, that little nugget, right? Mm-hmm. In another way, that you should take something away from everyone that you interact with, good or bad, right? You should learn something, I think. And what a great way to do it is like we're doing it right now.
Well, and I would even go a step further than that and say that, like, when you talked about, when I said, not to poo-poo on other podcasts and stuff, but why would you not make a good interview? What if that's the last time that person gets to tell their story? that their kids, their grandkids, their great grandkids are going to hear. And that's the only thing they know of them. Why would you not take the time to put the best foot forward?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And everyone's got their style, right? And I'm sure like everyone has their style. And the more I do this, the more you could kind of start, I'm sure you would agree, kind of start to pick up on, I found that the more I know the person, the harder it is to interview them.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because I'm almost having to put myself in the audience shoes, right? And be like, well, what would like, I know everything about this dude. You know what I mean? Or at least I think I do. Time and time again, I've been proven wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know that,
Right.
And I had a friend, a very, very close friend of mine. That was one of the best compliments that I've received, where he's like, hey, I watched your episode with your dad, and he goes, I spent my entire life around that dude. Yeah, I thought I knew him inside and out. He goes, and there was all kinds of things that he said that I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, and I took that as a high compliment.
Yeah, it's 100% a high compliment. And I think that when you talk about people that you know and interviewing them, how great is it when you find out something that you didn't know? Or maybe they thought a certain way that you thought they thought another way. That's what I think is so great in the interviews, when you know the people. And I think it's fun to even go back, because I've started doing it recently. I think you and I talked about it, where I'm taking people that I've interviewed and I'm saying, what's the one story? The one story that sticks with you forever, that you'll never forget. Let's do that story. And even if we talked about it in the first interview, we're going to get deep into this one.
Dude, you've had some stumpers. You've thrown some stumpers my way via text message. Like like what was the first time you're like, hey, music, what's your favorite song? And I was like, well, hold on. You're like, right now, go.
Right.
And I kind of looked at my phone like, and then I spit it out. You know
Right.
what I mean? I was not ready for that. Like, well, hold on, that's a tough question. I'm more of a music buff than I'm any. Like, I got to pick one. That's hard.
Yeah.
And especially like on the spot. Yeah, you've what was one that you asked with Dane and I? Was like funniest.
Your funniest and your most proud moment.
Yeah, man. I can't even remember if I answered you or not.
You did.
Did I?
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
When you saw him at Basic.
Yeah. When I saw him,
and it was the same for him. When you came and saw him.
Yeah. Just like a question that I'd never been presented, right? I had somebody ask me once. It was a counselor. I was going through some prior to going down to that experimental treatment in Mexico, and the counselor said, if you were to die tomorrow, what would it say on your tombstone? And I've told the story 100 times, you know what I mean? But I was like, I sat back in my chair. I was like, I've never thought about that, And he goes, well, it would say this, it would X, it would Y, kind of going off of the highlight reel. And I was like, yep, it would say all those things. He goes, well, what else could it say? Like it's already etched. That stuff's already on the tombstone. Like, what else could it say? And that I don't think I'll ever forget that.
And I would even go, because as soon as you started asking that question, my brain kicked in. What would you want it to say?
And that's right. And I had somebody ask me that. I said, I wanted to say husband, father, friend. And they're like, that's it? And I go, it doesn't need to say anything else. To me, it doesn't need to say anything else. It just, and I didn't have to think about that answer at all. It just came out. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's I think your questions are fantastic.
I appreciate. I'm honored that you say that. I really am.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you came, dude. Tell everyone where they can find you.
So I'll do my preamble that I always do on my
Please.
show. You can find me a couple different places. You can find me on Instagram, the DTD_podcast. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD podcast. And you can find me on YouTube at the Dynamic Tales Delivered podcast or the DTD podcast. You can also go to dtdpodcast.net. It's a little more comprehensive. There's the shows on there, but it also has some blogs and some articles and some different things. You can find out what's going on. You can leave a comment. You can leave a review. And that's going to be the main spot where you can find me. But if you want to just kind of catch the sizzle reel, you can do Instagram, Facebook, things like that.
Perfect. Brother, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sincerely, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. You know, I'm honored that this is the first time that you've been on the opposite end of the microphone.
Yeah. I wasn't nervous in the beginning. Then the questions started flying. I'm like, well, maybe I am a little nervous about it.
That's good. That's good. Well, once again, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go talk off air.
Okay.
All right, brother.
All right, man.
Thanks, everybody. Stay mobile.